This is Danny Amaro, a retired 502 longshoreman. Hey Danny, how did you end up on the waterfront? How did you get started?
How did I get started?
Yeah.
Oh, Christ. Well, I remember the old man telling me that as long as you're in school, you don't have to work. And I guess I was about 17, I think. And I got kicked out of school. So I went down to PCT Cold Storage for a job. And I'm working there, and every time I looked out the window and I see the longshoreman working at the PCT off the top, looking down on them, they're making, I think it was $2.50 or $2.78 an hour, and I'm making 55 cents an hour. So I quit the job, went back home, and I told the old man I got canned. And he said, all right, let's go to work. I'll take you down the hall. Took me down the hall. My grandfather, uncles, and cousins were all down there, so I started that way. Yeah.
What was your first job like?
My first job
Yeah.
that I can remember was with Bork's gang at Fraser Mills, loading those crossing ties. And I never thought that was possible. And you know what the most embarrassing moment was of that? Because we just lived up the hill, up Marmont.
Yeah.
My old man came down at noon, and he hung over the hatch, and he called my name, so I stuck my head out and looked up. Mom made you lunch, catch it. And you know what Borg's gang is like, huge. And I was embarrassed. I just embarrassed it. But that was, I mean, my arsehole was sucking wind then. That was a hell of a job. But it was a good job. Good training, you might say. How to use a PV. I remember Len Truan got mad at me one time. I was using the PV wrong. I wasn't pushing it right. And he came over and started jumping on me. And what the heck was it? Not Bodrigs, the twins, what were they called? They came over and they told me, he says, just ignore him. We'll talk to him. So we went over and talked to him. He said, remember you were green once? I remember how you used the PV. He's doing it the same way. Give him a chance. You know? That's where I got my first lesson on the PV. And then after I learned how to use it, I loved it. But then that was the way it was then. But Fraser Mills, that was the first job I think I can remember.
It was Len Truan that was hassling you with the
Len
PV?
Truan, yeah, he was hassling me about the PV because I wasn't doing it right. Mind, he was a tall, thin man and strong, eh? And I can't remember the name of the twins that worked in there. It was Fred Gibsons. Gibsons were working down there. Yeah, it was a good time. They really taught me well. And they started winging up when it was about 7 feet, and you weren't that tall then, you know. That was tough work.
You were probably talking about Len Taylor, though.
That's it, Len Taylor. You're right, yeah.
Yeah.
You got a better memory than I got.
Did you do the same thing every day, or was every day, there were some days different?
Well, if you went on a ship, you were there for 5 days, maybe even over a week doing the same thing. But the next job, you would go back to the hall and hope you got picked out of the crowd of people that were there to get another job.
What were some of the cargoes you used to handle?
Well, mostly lumber. Then there was lead, zinc, and those, what do you call those rocks? Nickel natty rocks, yeah. And hides. Then there was lots of canned food, flour, fertilizer. Most of all that work was done by hand.
Did you need to have any special tools or clothes to do your job?
Yeah, a pair of gloves. That was about it. And an apron when you got on the lumber when we could afford to buy one. I remember that apron.
What companies did you work for?
Well, there was Empire, Canadian. There was, oh God, that's a good question. The weight, what was the weight? CM&S. Oh, I can't remember all the companies.
And when you got paid, did you get paid one check or did you get paid?
Multi-checks. We had to go down to PCT dock down there where the Empire kept all their locker there and all their stuff there, and we used to go there and pick up checks. Then we went over to the main office at PCT there and picked up a few more checks.
How old were you when you started? I think you already had said that, didn't you?
Yeah, about 17, I guess it was. 18.
Have you got any funny stories you'd like to tell about some of the things that went on?
Oh God. You were there. You should know him. Jeez. I remember one time, Gene and I think, were working in Vancouver on sax, and we're with Rougeau. And Rougeau was always picking and laughing at you and all this stuff. But I think it was Gene or myself found a bottle of scotch stuck up on the Coleman. So we grabbed the bottle, and he says, "You got to share that." And he says, "No, we don't. We don't have to share it with you. You're nobody." We teased him all the time, tie him up and stuff like that. So he swiped the bottle of scotch. So we wrestled him down, threw him on the sacks, and put one arm on each sack and one arm on a sack on each leg, and build it up high enough so we could put a sack over his head and cut a little hole in it, and it was full of peas, and they were dripping down. So we decided just to stay there and drink the bottle of scotch and let him suffer. I can still see him doing this. But there's a whole bunch of stories there. Oh my God. Some of them were pretty rough. We liked to tease. There was always something going on. It was lots of fun. It was a pleasure to come to work. If I had my way, or if I had to start all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. I'd do it all over again. It was good. Good bunch of guys to work with. It wasn't a dull moment. I remember the time you caught me climbing over the fence when we were going up the pool. Oh, that hurt. And Kalutz with a big waterfall in front of him. You still see that.
The time you splashed. I was sitting in my car down when you come, and I thought, "Hi." Just a tidal wave. He completely obliterated.
Yeah,
You
couldn't see him. Jesus, oh my God. He always had that thing, remember, he'd come on the ship, or every time you see him after he hit you or did something, peace brother, so I came up to peace brother. Yeah. We had some good times. I wouldn't trade it. Wish I could remember as much as I could, but remember they told us that you guys got to be careful because they're taking pictures of us all the time, watching us. Well, I'd love to see those pictures. Yeah.
What was the dispatch like when you got a job in the morning?
Well, Curry, I think, was one of the dispatchers in there at the time, and used to go through all the members and regulars and stuff like that, and they need extra guys. They used to call your name if you were there. And then once they recognized you, I guess, or you did a good job, found out you were pulling your weight, they might have kept you going. It was one day a week maybe, or no week, nothing during the week. But we had lots of time to play cards and drive around in our old cars and come back for the next dispatch and try again.
Did you always work in Westminster, or did you work other places?
No, worked in New Westminster, worked in Vancouver, Fraser, Surrey, and the cannery dock, rice mills. You remember the rice mills? Yeah.
And where did you end up your last years in the waterfront?
At West Shore Terminals, about 27 years there.
What did you do there?
Operate the machines as an operator. Then in my final years, I got into the warehouse, just a part-time when they needed somebody.
How many ratings did you end up with? How many different types of equipment did you end up operating over the years?
Off the docks or at West Shore and everything?
Everything.
Everything.
All inclusive.
There was the lift trucks, winch, straddle carriers, anything that had wheels on it, and at West Shore was all the heavy equipment there, cats, front end loaders, and all the big equipment to run the machines. It was a fantastic job. Yeah, it's recording if it's in red. That's what I got told. See, I didn't even get the lesson, and I know.
Did you ever work a booze ship, a liquor ship?
Oh yeah, we worked a lot of those. Remember how we used to go down below, and then 4 guys on each side would start right up against the sides of the ship and go in and turn left or right, depending on what side you worked on. And one guy would get in there and take a box, and he'd rip. The other guys on the other side were back in the boxes and booze out. Oh yeah. Even salmon, remember the salmon? Used to get on. They watched us unload salmon. They used to guard that like crazy. If I remember right, the old man told me one time that he stole 3 cans of salmon and got 3 months in Ocala for it. And my grandfather, they used to load these sail ships. They used to come in overseas. They used to pack timbers in from one end to the other. I remember my grandfather telling me those things. Wow, I'm telling you, that was crazy. And they thought it was all good jobs. I mean, they were happy. God, they lived to their 90s. They were big guys. My uncles, my cousins, a whole bunch of us down there. I think Ronnie's the last of the bunch, his kids. I don't think there's any. My kids didn't go down. At the time my kids could have went down, there was the time when it was just before we were thinking about going to West Shore. And it was nothing but sacks, steels, and there was hardly any work. The flower jobs all the time. So my son's got a job as a plumber, and the other one went as a regular workforce and working for Sears. But
In fact, you're one of the few families that have had four generations on the waterfront.
is that right?
Well, you got your grandfather,
Yeah.
your dad, you, and then Ronnie's kids.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Wow. God, we're getting old. No, but like I said before, I wouldn't trade a thing over. I think I'd do everything over again the same way. I'd get even more though.